a newcomer or visitor to our congregation, please go to sunnyhill.org and click on the button that says New to Sunnyhill. You can learn more information about our congregation and sign up to receive our weekly email newsletter. If you're joining us online today, please say hello or good morning in the comments on Facebook or YouTube. We'd like to hear from you and extend a welcome to you as well. We love welcoming children of all ages to join us for our service. If your little one has trouble containing their big feelings during all of the excitement that's happening in here, please consider visiting the nursery, which you can find through the doors in the back corner of the sanctuary. Or you may also consider using the comfort room by going through the back doors of the sanctuary and taking a left down the hall. You can comfortably see and hear the service from that location. And a gentle reminder to everyone to please silence your cell phones. Today's sermon is titled Hope, Not Hell. More than 250 years ago, John Murray, considered the founder of Universalism in America, extolled the value of preaching hope, not hell. What does it mean to lean into hope amid the challenges facing our country today? Our opening words were written by Kimberly Tomzak Carlson. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you began seeking a beloved community, a group of people who do not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome home. Our chalice lighting this morning is in the form of a responsive reading. After each phrase I read, please respond by saying, "We light our chalice." For the illuminating light of truth, we light our chalice. For the purifying fire of justice, we light our chalice. For the life-sustaining flame of love, we light our chalice. For the hope-filled brightness of this gathered community, we light our chalice.
There we go. Please rise and bow to your spirit to join in singing our opening hymn, We Were Made for These Times. We'll sing the first verse through a couple of times so you can join in. And this song has a call and response. So after we've sung it a couple times, I'll start leading the response. And you can follow me if that is your choice this morning. Maybe at least this group.
Heart, we were made for these times. Don't lose heart, we were made for these times. Don't lose heart, we
Please be seated.
Good morning, friends. If there are any kiddos that want to come up for our time for all ages, now is your chance. Good morning, friends. Happy snowy Sunday. This story is about someone named John Murray. And John Murray was a real person who lived a long, long time ago. You never know what the wind will blow or which way the wind blows. The wind can change directions and maybe even change your life. That's what happened to John Murray. As a young man, John Murray had an excellent fortune blow his way. He had a great education, a loving family, a great job. Life was great. Then, suddenly, everything changed. John Murray's wife and their son became sick and died. He lost his job, lost all of his money, and was even put in jail because he could not pay his bills. John was a very religious man. He was a Universalist who had preached about a loving God that accepted everyone into heaven. Now, he was not so sure what he believed. He felt like his life was over. Friends urged him to go someplace where he could start all over again. So that's what he did. He sailed for America on a ship named the Hand in Hand. The wind blew the ship toward their destination, which was New York. But then a fog rolled in, and the ship ran aground in New Jersey instead. John and a few others volunteered to leave the ship, go on land, and get directions and supplies. As he was walking ashore, John saw a farmhouse with a small chapel or a church beside it. It belonged to someone named Thomas Potter. Thomas Potter greeted John, gave him enough food for everyone on the ship, and invited John to come back and have dinner with him that night. When John came back, Thomas Potter showed him the chapel. Thomas explained that he had built the chapel over 10 years ago, just waiting and hoping for a minister to arrive that would preach about a loving God that accepted all people into heaven, just like John used to do. Thomas pleaded for John to be that minister, but John did not want to hear it. He was not a preacher anymore and wanted to move on and never preach again. John told Thomas that he could not take the job because as soon as the wind changes, my boat will set sail and I must be on it. If the boat has not sailed by Sunday, will you preach? Asked Thomas Potter. Fine. If I'm still here on Sunday, I will preach, said John Murray. What do you think happened? Did the wind blow? Did his ship leave? No wind blew. No ship sailed away. So John Murray had to stick to his word, so he preached on that Sunday morning, September 30th, 1770, in the chapel Thomas Potter built so many years before. The Universalist message of the power of love was good news to the many people who heard it. It was also good news for John. He needed to hear it again, too. The winds of change blew yet again for John Murray. He now wanted to preach more than anything, and so he did, for many years, and he helped found Universalism in America. He is one of our ancestors of our faith home, and we, as Unitarian Universalists, owe a special thanks to Thomas Potter, too. He believed so strongly in a loving God, and he held on to that hope for so many years. And because of that hope, he and John Murray were able to spread the message of a loving God to America. And with that, we will head to our honor class. Let's sing the kiddos out.
As you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Our love is with you always. As you go, as you go, as you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know our We sing for these times. We cry for these times when our hearts break together for a world that we all share. We sing for these times. We cry for these times, and we hope for something better, for a world that can be as beautiful as we dare. Yes, we sing for these times. We sing for these times. We cry for these times. When our hearts break together for this world that we all share. We sing for these times, and we cry for these times, and we hope for something better, for this world which can be as beautiful as we dare. Yes, we sing for these times. Oh, we sing for these times. Oh, we sing for these times. Oh, we sing for these times.
This is the time in our service each week when we share joys and sorrows that have been submitted by members of the congregation. After each joy or sorrow that I read, please respond by saying, "We hold you in our hearts." Just one submission this week from Julia Oak. It's a joy. She says, "What a joy to hear our 5-year-old singing, 'This is it, this is it, this is the place you want to be,' while going for a snowy walk in the woods this afternoon after singing it at church this morning. Hearing Henry say, 'I love going to church,' is music to my ears, especially after growing up in a UU church myself. Thank you to all the incredible staff and worship associates for creating these beautiful rituals for our family every Sunday. We are thankful to call Sunnyhill our spiritual home." To Julia and Henry and all of our Sunday morning team, we hold you in our hearts. As we sing our musical meditation, we invite anyone who feels moved to do so to come forward, light a candle, place it in the sand, and then return to your seats.
Breathe
Please join me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Let us pause to consider the possibility of hope in a time of despair, to consider how our lives are shaped not just by the reality of loss, but also by the glimmer of hope that others hold for us even when we cannot hold it for ourselves, cannot sense it for ourselves. Let us pause to consider hope not as a precondition for action, but as a consequence of action, of doing the next right thing, of living our lives as if there were something larger than ourselves alone, even when we have no sense of what that something might be or why it proves so elusive, especially in times of struggle and uncertainty. We pause now for a moment of silence to make room in our hearts and in the heart of this community for something like hope to emerge. May we breathe our way into new ways of loving. May we live our way into new ways of thinking. And may we act our way into new ways of hoping, now and always. Amen. In a fascinating juxtaposition of events, tomorrow will be both Martin Luther King Jr. Day and the second inauguration of Donald Trump as president. It's difficult to imagine two more different public figures. King's philosophy rejected the status quo of American empire, and it rejected the premise that self-interest is or ought to be our highest ideal. Trump's philosophy, if it can be called a philosophy, is premised almost entirely on self-interest, his own self-interest above all, as the highest ideal. Trump leads a movement characterized by what has been called grievance culture, a hopeless political enterprise designed to feed off pain, anger, and racial resentment. His followers are hell-bent on blaming one or another other group, immigrants or transgender people or people of color, among others, for everything that goes wrong in their lives. King led a movement that emphasized agape, the love of the Christian Gospels. In King's words, agape is a love by which the individual seeks not his own good, but the good of his neighbor. Agape does not begin by discriminating between worthy and unworthy people or any qualities people possess. It begins by loving others for their sakes. It is, he said, love in action. As I said, it's a strange and fascinating juxtaposition, the lives and outlooks of these two men who will be celebrated tomorrow. For many of us, it might be an occasion that leads to despair. It might lead us toward anguish and despondency. But we must remember that this moment is bigger than our personal feelings and fears alone. If we are to find something resembling hope in this moment, we must remember that hope itself is bigger than ourselves alone, and certainly bigger than our frustrations and disappointments. As King said, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Hope, in this larger sense, is a current, a stream that is always there, whether we are able to sense and experience it or not. Hope, in the sense that King spoke of it, has to do with a philosophical orientation and a theological grounding rather than a personal emotion that might come and go. The challenges that we face today with regard to a theology of hope remind me of similar challenges from the 18th and 19th centuries that gave birth to both Unitarianism and Universalism in America. Understanding the challenges of that era, and especially understanding the Universalist response to those challenges, might be helpful in understanding possible responses to the challenges of our own era. So this morning, I'm going to take a bit of a deep dive into early American Universalism and examine its relevance to us here and now. Unitarianism and Universalism in this country were both responses to the dominant Protestant theology of their time, which is a particular kind of Calvinism that the Puritans brought with them when they came to America in the 17th century. John Calvin was a 16th century French theologian who, along with Martin Luther, the original Martin Luther, and a few others, became one of the most influential leaders of the Protestant Reformation. The kind of Calvinism that I'm describing this morning was somewhat different from the writings of Calvin himself. Like any movement, Calvinism took on a life of its own. Two of the central tenets of Calvinism had to do with the nature of humankind and the nature of God with regard to salvation. Calvinists were clear in their opinion of human nature. They espoused the total depravity of humankind, the idea that there is no inherent good in anyone. The modern UU idea of every person having inherent dignity and being inherently worthy would have been anathema to Calvinists. They believe that we are all hopeless sinners. With regard to God and salvation, Calvinists put forth what they called unconditional election, the idea that there were a few people whom God had chosen to send to heaven after their deaths, not necessarily based on their faith or their behavior, but selected more or less arbitrarily. All the rest are bound for hell no matter what they believe or what they practice. As the first generation or two of Puritans began dying out in New England, some of the younger clergy began doubting a number of the traditional Calvinist doctrines, including the doctrine of unconditional election. Then, in the 1740s, America's first evangelical revival movement began, known as the Great Awakening. Great Awakening revivalist preachers emphasized the necessity of what they called a new birth, by which they meant an individual conversion experience that would leave the convert convinced of both the depravity of humankind and their total dependence on the will of God for salvation in this life and after. These preachers drew to their revival services thousands of people who were left with the belief that salvation had little to do with human action or human agency, but was completely dependent on this narrow notion of the grace of God, a small taste of which might be sensed through the experience of religious conversion or new birth, what is now born again. The emerging Unitarians of the 18th and 19th centuries objected to the Great Awakening on the grounds that it appealed to people's emotions rather than to rational thought or beliefs. The emerging Universalists, on the other hand, objected to the Great Awakening on the grounds that God was love and would not damn anyone to eternal hell. The old saying was that the Unitarians believed that they were too good to be sent to hell, and the Universalists believed that God was too good to send anyone to hell. So the Unitarians put forth people's sense of rationality as being of great importance, while Universalists put forth people's sense of some kind of bigger love, of a love that will not let us go, as being of ultimate importance. I am, of course, speaking in gross generalizations today. Unitarians almost certainly had room in their rational, logic-based theology for a loving God, and Universalists definitely used rational arguments to bolster their beliefs in God as love. But there was a clear difference in points of emphasis for these two emerging religious movements. That's kind of a lot for Sunday morning. Are you with me so far? Okay, good for you. I'm going to shift now to our current era and how the views of our Unitarian and Universalist forebears might be relevant to our current perspectives and our own theology of hope. The toxic theology of our own era has its roots in a kind of hyper-Calvinism, but it is not limited to those who identify as religious. The toxic theology of today is based in fear of the other and is not as much about bridging differences and bringing people together as it is about burning bridges and further separating groups of people from one another. This theology in its current manifestation in America results, in the word of theologian Daniel Schipani, in forms of emotional, spiritual, moral, and sometimes physical or sexual violence and power abuse. More than anything else, it seems to be about preserving power in the hands of those who have traditionally held it, which in the case of the United States tends to mean straight, white, cisgender men who identify as Christians and see themselves as in danger of extinction. In place of hell, they offer a vision of something like American carnage in which they feel threatened by the alleged evils of multiculturalism and anti-racism and other such bugaboos. I would suggest that the primary challenge of Unitarian Universalism in our current era is learning how to bring together both sides of our heritage, rationality, and this bigger love, to offer a real and vital alternative to the toxic theology of fear and hate. Earlier in the service, we heard part of the story of John Murray, the preacher who sailed from England and by chance landed in a place where people were waiting for his message about how the power of love can triumph over fear-based thinking. Murray is reported to have said, "Go out into the highways and byways of America. Give the people something of your vision. You may possess only a small light, but uncover it, let it shine, use it in order to bring more light and understanding to the hearts and minds of all. Give them not hell, but hope and courage. Today, we who identify as religious or political progressives often see the ways in which logic and rationality are under attack. And it's true that they are. Science and rational thinking have never been quite as disregarded as they are today. But perhaps even more importantly, love, in the largest universalist sense of the word, is also under attack. The toxic theologies and thinking of today have resulted in more violence, more abuse, and more harm than many of us have seen in a very long time, some of which may have been going on for decades or centuries, but has been invisible to many of us who have been protected by multiple layers of privilege. And just as love is under attack on multiple fronts, so too is hope, threatened in many ways. As I've mentioned before, we can get so stuck in the helplessness induced by facing reality and grieving loss that we lose the sight of even the possibility of hope. And without the possibility of hope, there's no good way to move forward. And for most of us, I would suggest the best way to find hope is through committed action. In fact, we cannot and must not wait for hope to arrive before we begin to act. We must act in ways that make sense in the faith that hope will come as a result of these actions. I'm going to repeat that again because this is perhaps the crux of my sermon this morning. We can't wait for hope to arrive before we begin to act. We must act in ways that make sense in the faith that hope will come as a result of those actions. Hope is hard to find in the midst of war and catastrophe, in the midst of political and economic chaos and uncertainty, in the midst of escalating violence and fear and anger. But there is almost always some action we can take that we know is the next right thing to do. And taken together over time, these actions almost always result in hope, the kind of hope that can lift us up from the hell of helplessness and fear. When asked about his concept of hope, Václav Havel said, "It's not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out." The certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. Our religious tradition has always been one that joins the power of rational thought with the power of love in such a way as to create hope, not hell. We live in an age of uncertainty in so many ways. I can't tell you with any certainty what's going to happen next week or in the next year or the next decade. But I can tell you that there are actions that we can take that are right, that make sense, that go beyond narrow self-interest, that are based on both what is rational and what is loving. There are actions we can take that make sense to alleviate, if not solve, our current climate crisis. There are actions we can take that make sense to amplify rather than silence the voice of those who are oppressed and marginalized in our society. There are actions we can take that make sense to expand democracy rather than diminish it. And it is through these actions that we will find hope. I hope and pray that as we witness the events of tomorrow and as we navigate the uncertain waters and winds of change ahead of us. We will remember, as John Murray did, to bring light and understanding rather than fear and falsehood, to bring the people hope, not hell. May it be so. Amen.
As you rise and body your spirit for our hymn, I'm going to plug the Let Freedom Sing concert, which is taking place tomorrow night. It's going to be streamed, so online on Facebook and on YouTube, so you can stay warm and still watch it. Please rise and body your spirit so we can sing Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. You are like no other being. What you can give, no other can give to the future of our precious children, to the future of the world where we live. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from grief to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. Hear the song of peace within you. Hear the song of peace in your heart. Spring's new beginning shall lead to the harvest. Love will guide us on our way. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Thank you. Please be seated. I hope that's the earworm for you this week.
Our Share the Plate beneficiary for the month of January is the UU Service Committee. UUSC advances human rights and social justice around the world, partnering with those who confront unjust power structures and mobilizing to challenge oppressive policies. Their work is grounded in the belief that all people have inherent power and dignity. You can make a gift online on our website or by text at 412-324-3130. We'll be passing our offering baskets for cash and checks in just a moment. If you're writing a check, please make it out to UUCSH and put Share the Plate in the memo line. Thank you for your generosity. Please join me in saying the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
We'll close for now with these words. As far as our love flows, as far as our hope grows, as far as our yearning goes, we are no farther from one another. Go in peace, go in hope, go in love.